All right, welcome to another edition of the King Kong Trail. I'm Doug Vandiver, sitting next to Tad Good. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing wonderful. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too.
You know, I think I was asking questions about the Capitol Theater, and a couple names came up, but yours consistently came up a few times. So it's like, okay, I got to have this guy.
Yeah. Well, I know you've messaged the page a few times, and I'm the one that replies to that on the Facebook page. And I know for like the band stuff, you had Jeff Poulter on.
Yes.
You know, and he does a lot of the booking and stuff, and he was the one that probably I pointed you to him, and then he pointed you back at me. So.
Well, and I think my cousin, Bob Pratt.
Yeah.
He does his Bean Happy Roaster.
Yeah.
And it's like, you talking to Tad? It's like, I don't know who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well, it's nice to meet you. Tell me about your local native from Burlington.
Yep.
Tell me about yourself a little bit.
Well, born and raised in Burlington. Only time I've really lived away from here is when I went to school over in Macomb at Western.
Okay.
So I got my bachelor's degree in graphic communications and marketing, and then I also had a minor in art and printmaking. Always wanted to be an artist, but I wanted to make money. And so I compromised with graphic communication. So, you know, it's sort of graphic design, graphic art, and I also, like I said, did a lot of art in school to sort of feed that creative part of me, but also realizing I wanted a degree that I would use when I got out of school.
Right. I went to Art Bible College, and there's no money in that.
I mean, it you know, right? We my generation we came out right at that time where that bubble sort of burst. Like my brother, I have an older brother, and when he got out of school for computer science, it was like the employers were coming to him. They were fighting over him. You know,
right.
He was taking bid for the highest paying job and stuff. And, you know, when I saw that, I'm like, great, you know, I need to go to college and do that. And I feel like we got out, it was a little more of a struggle. I know plenty of people that were in my class that are, you know, not at all in the field anymore. And it truly is a field that if you don't use it, you lose it. I mean, if you don't keep up with the current trends, you don't keep up with the software, if you don't use it for a year, you might as well not have your degree anymore. So,
You're kind of funny. You talk about use it or lose it. I first started this podcast. I just looked back, and it was like November 26th. Well, the first one I did, it was just a video, no video, but just audio. And I thought, well, cool. I've got a digital camera, a video camera. I'll just plug that in, and we'll record the audio here, and I'll go back and splice them together. And a 15-year-old digital camera is not very good.
Yeah. I mean, you know, the technology is so quick now that you know, even phones have 4K on them now, and it's wild. But you know, it's also really cool that it's so accessible. You know what I mean? We're shooting this in your house. That's pretty cool, you know? And this is sort of the new media. You know, people listen to podcasts a lot more than mainstream media. I mean, Joe Rogan's like the guy, you know what I mean? People go to him for a source. And, you know, it's crazy. The political campaigns were all trying to get on his show, you know, and 10 years ago, you know, people were saying, what the hell's a podcast?
They probably like, hey, let's go smoke with Joe.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You know, and he himself sort of jokes about it. He's like, you know, I can't believe people want to be on my show. It's just me and a bunch of comedians messing around, you know, and he doesn't see himself as that figure, but, you know, so many people watch stuff like podcasts, and, you know, like Mark Maron had Barack Obama in his garage, you know, a few years ago, and that was like that was groundbreaking at the time, you know, for a podcast, and it's so mainstream now.
I just seen that Joe Rogan had. My brain does not hold facts very well. They say he's the pioneer, the first guy that's Hunt, I think, but he was credited with doing the first podcast.
Okay.
And I haven't listened to that yet, but definitely want to hear that.
I know there was a guy for a while there that sort of claimed he came up with the name podcast. Not that he recorded the first one, but the name podcast. So he was sort of going after all the big name podcasts like Rogan, Maron, all those, and sort of trying to create this big lawsuit and take that away from them, or at least get payment out of them. And it got ugly, you know, because even still now the podcasts are sort of the Wild West. You know, anybody can do it, you know, unless you're Alex Jones. But
what happened with him? I never really followed him.
He got a DUI today.
No kidding.
Yep. So that's what happened to him.
He'll be in.
And he's being sued by the Sandy Hook parents. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was big on conspiracy theories
Yeah.
and gay frogs and
oh yeah.
things like that.
He took it a little too far, I think. But
Yeah. Too many steroids or something. I don't know.
yeah, something.
So you graduated from Macomb.
Yeah, and then moved back, and I started my job that I have now. I'm a graphic designer down at Craftsman Press, which is right next to the Capitol Theater. It's
Okay.
an old school print press, and I started there my last semester of college. So I was driving to Macomb, taking classes, and driving over and working full time. And while I was at Craftsman Press, that's sort of where that was right at the time they were restoring the Capitol Theater, and so I was sort of watching them take it from rubble to what it is now. And
Right.
every time, every opportunity I was over there volunteering to try to get my foot in the door. And the board at that time was not that they were necessarily mean, but I don't think they necessarily wanted my help.
Okay.
And I think once I finally got my foot in and would not let it out, then they realized like, oh, he actually isn't just an annoying guy next door. He can
Right.
he has resources and he has the knowledge to help. And so once I got my foot in, I couldn't get out. So, I've been in there ever since. So,
Yeah. What an amazing transformation that theater is. When I was growing up, and I don't know what you graduated. I graduated in '89, but I remember the Capitol Theater being here and the Palace just right down the street.
Yeah.
Those were our movie theaters.
yeah, the Capitol closed before I was born, but I had the Palace for a little bit when I was a kid.
Okay.
Because the Capitol closed in '78. The last movie they played was Stephen King's Carrie, directed by Brian De Palma. And I know they closed because they became like the second run theater while the Palace was the first run theater. And someone actually probably about a year ago brought in a book. It's like a binder, and it has every movie that played at the Capitol, what dates it played, and order everything. So that was
cool.
a trip to look through. And
Yeah.
we knew that Carrie was the last one that played, but we didn't know sort of what else. So it's sort of cool. Like we played Snoopy Come Home in November, and it was cool because we could look through and see when it originally played at the first time it played at the Capitol.
nice.
And it's sort of cool to see like, oh, it's playing 30 years later or
Right.
whatever.
So how does that? I'm assuming when you play a movie down there at the Palace, you're not getting a big film reel anymore, is it?
No, we actually do still have the original projector
Okay.
down at the Capitol, and there's this cool little framed picture. It's like a newspaper article from when they got the new projector. At the time it was sort of groundbreaking, but no, we're sort of in the middle of like the top technology, which like the mall theater upgraded to, and film, because when the CEC theaters out at the mall, when they switched from film to digital, that was a huge, that's what took out a lot of the drive-in theaters and a lot
Yeah.
of the mom and pop theaters, because that was such a huge deal. And basically studios sort of said, here's what we're doing now. Take it or leave it, and there's only a few, and now of course just like vinyl films coming back and a lot of revival theaters and stuff, but we do have the original projector, but it's in no shape. It sat in that dilapidated theater and moisture got to it and it's rusted pretty bad, but it's still in the original spot that it was up in the projection room. And I remember when I first came into the theater and started volunteering there, they basically said, if you can get that thing out of this room, you can have it. At the time, the director, and I was like, I don't think my wife wants me to take home this like 2-ton projector.
Right.
But it's in one solid piece, and then there's several other pieces up in the storage, and it still has a long piece of film in there, and we've never been able to figure out what the last. It doesn't look like Carrie, but looking from, it's hard to look at the exact little frames, cells, and see what it was. It could be anything, but it's still there. But what we do now is basically when I started working there or volunteering there, it was just DVD, Blu-ray, and I have my own personal technology stuff that I bring in. Like I have a little what they call it NVIDIA Shield, and it's like a 4K streaming device that you can connect a hard drive to, and it plays just about any kind of video. And so I use that for like the film festival, and like the movie we had Friday night was an indie horror, and that way they don't have to send me physical media. They can send me a file. I download like a 12 gig file of the video and play it in 4K on the projector. It looks great.
Cool.
You know?
I got one complaint about that. Midnight's too old for this guy.
Oh, I know, and that was sort of, I think, their gimmick on that one. They wanted it to be a midnight movie to make it seem more like,
Right.
oh, this is so scary, it can only be played at midnight. I think it did sort of hurt. It does hurt ticket sales, but that was sort of their condition. But stuff like that, we only had 12 people, which people there are thinking, man, that was a flop at the Capitol, but. One, it was a box office split, so we don't, we're not out anything. Everybody a lot of people don't realize everybody down at the Capitol that's serving you popcorn, tickets, running projector, everybody's a volunteer. There's not paid staff, so everybody's volunteered. And for me, it's important to get that kind of stuff in there. Even if there's 12 people, those people come down. We had new people, and they came in and they said, man, this theater is really cool. I had no idea this was here, and they've lived in Burlington their whole life. They have never been there. They look around, this is really cool. This movie was cool. I'm going to come down for something else. Or tell their friends, man, the theater down there is really beautiful. They're doing cool things. To me, it's important to just keep doing that stuff, whether people want it or not. I just want to keep pushing it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a cool thing. I mean, I have been down there for quite a few movies.
Yeah, I've seen you down there.
Was it a concert or the school was it the Players Workshop a couple years ago? Did something with the after school program when my daughter was in there, and
yeah.
It was cool. It was huge for her because she's this shy girl, and she got to act out and be goofy, and it's like, yes.
Well, it is really cool. That's what's so important about the theater is it's a community theater. So people don't. I mean, it's hard to explain to people when they're like, well, why does everybody want to just volunteer? Like, why would you work when you're not getting paid? And to me, it's like and everybody wants to give back to the community because it's important. It can have a school play one night, a horror movie the next night, a band another night. But people also don't realize is that we rent it out. Like there's always something going on almost every night, whether the lights are the marquees on or not. People rent it all the time for different things, for private events. SCC's doing a musical, so they rehearse there all the time. There's just so much going on that people don't even know about in there. Almost every weekend's full throughout the rest of 2020, whether, it's a public event or not. So there's always something going on. It's a busy place.
Yeah. So, and you also work, you said the printing press.
Yeah, across
right
the
next
press.
door.
Yep.
What kind of things do you do there?
Basically, we print on anything but like T-shirts.
Okay.
So no screen printing, but I actually went to school and did like fine art screen printing. That was sort of my thing I focused on. But we do a lot of boring stuff like envelopes, business cards, letterheads, that kind of stuff. But I also, because of that, when I got my foot in the door at the Capitol, I'm like, I want to design your posters for all of your concerts and all that stuff. So I brought that over. So I get to do all that, and that kind of stuff's fun.
Oh, cool.
So a lot of it's fun anyways. Sometimes it's pretty standard. A band will just send a blank poster and just room for your date and location. But,
right.
When you get some of the other local stuff and they're just open to whatever, that's where it's fun for me.
Cool. Now, because everybody says, Ted, he's the horror movie guy.
Yeah.
If somebody wanted to show a movie down there, did you guys do something like that?
Yeah,
or take suggestions?
Oh yeah, we're always open for suggestions. But there's also several different ways you can do that. You can do a private showing where you can just rent the theater and basically pick your movie. You pay the licensing fee and the rental fee, and you can have your own private movie party. We've had plenty of people do that. It's not a cheap thing because of the cost of the movie licensing. Really is what it comes down to. But
what's the average of?
Probably about $250 to $350. So especially like a Disney movie now, they're in the $300 range.
Oh wow!
And it depends on how many seats you have. That's one disadvantage we have there is even if we don't, we're not going to sell 350 seats to some a Disney movie most likely. But they're still going to have to charge us for 350 seats because the capacity.
Okay.
But, the company we work with has been very flexible with us, very cool about things because they know we're doing it right. There's a lot of theaters or places, bars and restaurants and stuff that don't get things licensed. They don't do it right. And so I think they appreciate that even for like private parties where there's no way Disney would ever know we're playing for a birthday party. But we want to do things right.
Sure.
It's a moral thing. And, it's just the right thing to do because you're paying a studio, they paid to make the film. You know, it wouldn't be right for us to steal it from them. So I think sometimes when we do things the right way, we get rewarded for it, and they're pretty
Right.
flexible with the prices. And,
I remember I knew a guy that worked in Nashville, and he worked in it was for a Christian publication company, and he would, I don't want to say go after, but he, if he heard this movie was being shown somewhere and they didn't pay the license, he'd be the guy calling you up. Going,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
yeah, and we've never had that issue because we've never really done unlicensed showings. But from what I've heard, they're pretty much get a hold of you and say, don't do it.
Yeah.
The first time they'll say, don't do it. Probably the second time they'll say, hey, we can turn you in.
Have you ever read the end of a film where it says
Right.
you can go to jail?
Right. Well, I remember when I was a kid in school, they would always like wheel in the two TVs and show Disney movies. And then there was a time I remember maybe like fourth or fifth grade where Disney finally put their foot down on it and was saying, even schools can't just show movies because you're hurting our sales. If a kid goes and sees Aladdin in their class, they're not going to go home and want Aladdin. You know what I
Right.
mean? And personal opinion, Disney's sort of a big wheel, and they're going to take what they can. And there's been some controversy lately with them since they bought out Fox, and now they're basically stopping theaters like ours from showing a lot of the old Fox titles.
Really?
Yeah. So like Die Hard around Christmas, that kind of stuff. They own those now, so they're basically say they have control over whether or not you can play them. So just sort of like they do with their video releases, they vault movies, and so
To make them more
yeah.
desirable after
Exactly.
2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and certain situations where I remember when Prince passed away, we were going to play Purple Rain, and we got the okay, and we started promoting it, and then it wasn't Disney, but the studio, I think it was, it might have been Warner Brothers or Fox at the time before Disney bought them. They put their foot down, and because they saw people doing that, they said no, and then they put out their own screenings of it. But we'd already been promoting it, so they let us we were sort of grandfathered into it.
Okay.
They let us finally do it, but it was like they saw that we were going to make money off it, and they wanted to make the money, so they
Sure.
said no. We're going to put it out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the big companies like that, they're in it for the money.
Right.
That's what they,
Yeah.
their bread and butter. But a small, theater, like you said, everybody's volunteer, and you're not making a whole lot of on your sales, or even if you get 12, 15 people in there.
Right.
So.
And we have like this weekend we're playing Robots, a animated movie from like 2005, I think. But how that works is like there's a program called Pieces, the after school program.
Yep.
And they wanted to do this for their students, so they basically pay the license, and we offer it for free.
Okay.
So the license is covered. We're not losing money. We sell concessions. We get concession sales. It's a win-win for everybody. They let their students come down for a free movie, and we open it to the public. And then there's other ones, like we just did Toy Story over the weekend. Case Pine Credit Union wanted to sponsor that, and that way they get their name on the marquee, and
Sure.
they gave out tickets to their customers. You had to go to the branch to get the tickets, that kind of thing. It's it's a way to promote your business. So there's several different ways you can show movies. I think it's sort of cool when a place, offers to sponsor something that's maybe themed to their business. We've had that kind of thing before. And Christmas time's usually very popular. There's always 2 or 3 different businesses. I know Knights of Columbus usually do an Easter movie, that kind of stuff. So
Okay. Yeah. Probably Miracle on 34th Street or whatever that movie was.
Oh yeah. So it's cool, we get a lot of local businesses that want to sponsor stuff. So whether it's a concert or movie or anything, we'll never turn down sponsorship money. So.
Right. Got to pay the bills.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's not cheap to air condition or heat that building
I
and the
bet.
lights, and
Yeah. We've been down there a couple times, for a movie or a concert, and then the annex, is that what you guys call it?
the room right next to
Right,
it. Yep.
next door. And the old Couch Festival, been down there
Yeah.
for that. Didn't make it last year. It was really hot.
Oh yeah.
So
That one's always is funny to me just because we have this beautiful theater and we do an outdoor, concert, but it's been successful. People really enjoy it. So we're talking about it today at a meeting about, getting another planning meeting going for that. So
cool.
yeah.
Cool. Yeah, turn the weather down a little bit.
Yeah. Last year it was actually not nearly as bad as the year before. We've had some hot ones. I think it's usually in August it's really gets hot. So, yeah. Luckily we haven't had rain yet, though. That would be worse than heat. So,
This is true. But then you can move it indoors.
exactly. That's why up until we only sell like 350 tickets. So if it does move inside, everybody has a seat. And after that, if it's not going to rain, then we open it up.
I always want to know, why did they call it Old Couch?
We had this old couch in the back of the Capitol, this ugly, awful couch that was donated in somebody's name, and nobody really knows who it was. So sorry if you're watching and it was donated in your family's name or you donated it. But this thing sat back in our green room, and we couldn't get rid of it because somebody gave it to us in someone's name. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like we couldn't throw it away. So we were doing this music festival, like, what do we call it? And that thing has just sort of been a legend around the Capitol, this old couch. So someone said, I think Jerry Johnson, who was the director at the time, had this much longer name. It was like Old Couch, Outdoor. Like, he had this long extended name and just got narrowed down eventually to the Old Couch Music Fest. And then we had this idea of bringing out old couches so people can sit on them and encourage people to bring their own. And, Yeah.
I've got an old egg chair that I want to bring down one of these years.
Yeah.
I got to get it fixed up a little bit.
Yeah.
My wife over there, she's like, I hate it.
We've had people bring in love seats and couches, and then we tell them, if you want to bring them down and leave them, we'll take them down. We take them either hopefully yours, or if they're in bad shape, we take them to the dump and take care of it. And,
right.
It's just sort of a fun novelty to do. So
Sure. Cool. So, what else do you do? You do the Capitol. You work at the printing press. Growing a righteous beard, I must say.
Yeah, I am the director of Snake Alley Festival Film, and like I said, I have a podcast too. So,
well, tell me about the Snake Alley.
Okay, well, that is coming up here June 25th through the 28th, and what it is a 4-day short film festival. We celebrate all things short films, screenplays, including music videos, animation, all genres you can sort of think of outside of commercials. No commercials, but other than that, just about everything, and short screenplays too. And sometimes on special occasions, we'll have a feature film. We've had one. We had two years ago, and didn't have one last year, a feature. But for special occasions, we'll bring one in.
Mm-hmm. So, how does the film festival work? I mean,
well, do
you go looking for the movies? Or
we sort of, just like the Iowa Motion Picture Association, we use the same format, the Film Freeway, which is now sort of the standard place where filmmakers can submit and find festivals.
Okay.
Used to be a different website. I'm trying to even remember its name. Without a Box is what it was called. They were sort of the first pioneers. And basically, you sign up your festival, filmmakers sign up for free, and they search through and see what will fit their film best. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, we do short films, so anywhere between 1 second to 40 minutes. And
a 1 second film.
We've had ones that are less than a minute before, 30-second ones. We never had a 1 second one, but I remember some that were like, one that was the credits were longer than the actual film. One was called, I think the shortest one I remember was like the short cowboy or something. And it was a little person that played a cowboy, and he rode into the frame on a horse. He got shot with a shotgun, flew off the horse, and then the credits rolled. And that was the whole movie. But it was hilarious. It was shocking because you didn't expect it.
Wow. I try to wrap my head around that because I talking with Kevin Brubaker and who's the other person?
Dylan.
I talked to? Dylan.
Yeah.
About the independent films. And, I'm thinking a film, you got to be at least an hour and a half, and asked him, how do you make an independent film? Mm-hmm. The standard answer is buddies and a camera.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what's cool about shorts is, for a film festival, it's really cool because one, they ranged all over the place. I mean, absolutely crazy amount of variety. So if I always tell people when they're sort of like, well, do you think I'll like it? There's something for everybody. If you come down and you don't like a movie, it's going to be over probably in 20 minutes.
Right.
And another one come up. And last year we played 120 of them.
Wow.
So there's going to be something you're going to like. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's, like I said, there's everything from horror. There's drama is obviously the most sort of encompassing genre. So there's a lot of dramatic shorts, but there's comedy. We have a lot of great animations from all over the world. Documentaries are some of my favorites because when you're doing short format documentary, you can make it about anything you want, and you learn the most about things you never thought you wanted to know about. It's just those always blow my mind.
For example, what would be some of the things you learned about? There
was one a couple years ago about it was called Heavy Metal Grandma, and it was a German lady in her 90s that wrote poems. And this metal band saw her and thought her poems were fantastic, so they brought her and she would like sort of scream her poems over their music, and it became this popular thing. They're on like German's version of America's Got Talent.
Okay.
So German's Got Talent, I guess. I don't know. But she became viral, and it became this whole thing. And they followed it, and I thought, oh, this will be a fun novelty. But like, it got to the point where they were so big, and she didn't want to do it anymore. And it was sort of heartbreaking because then, she's getting famous, but she's having a hard time remembering the lyrics. I mean, she was like 90 years old, and the lights and glamour she just did not care about that. She wanted to get her poetry out, and these other guys were trying to get famous off of her. And
right.
it sort of got dark really fast, but you can learn about that. There was one about a guy who basically dedicated his whole life to catching breaking the record for the biggest fish caught in this lake. Okay. And it started off really innocent, and this guy's fishing every day, and you're watching him struggle, and you're like, he's never going to do it. And it got to the point where he's obsessive. His wife leaves him. He loses, his kids are out of the house because he's fishing every day. He lost his job. I mean, he's completely let it overtake his life, and it's no longer funny, and then it just gets really sad. And I guess that's sort of a sad theme to go from, hey, this is a fun novelty to right. something really dark. But, there's just some crazy ones. Just absolutely mind-boggling. The documentaries always surprise me.
A little higher quality than YouTube?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. A lot of the stuff we get ends up being playing at bigger festivals, like South by Southwest and Sundance, that kind of stuff. The shorts that's what's cool about the shorts, too, is that, we would never be able to snag a feature that's going to be nominated at the Oscars or something, but we've had several of the Oscar-nominated shorts play here before they ended up getting nominated.
Really?
So, yeah, we had a documentary about the Nazis when they went to Madison Square Garden and had a rally, way back in the day, obviously, but that ended up getting nominated for an Oscar. I think it was called A Day in the Park or something like that, or A Day in the Garden, or maybe. Okay. And that ended up being nominated for an Oscar. And we've had several animated shorts from Belgium and different places all around the world that end up getting nominated. So, it's really cool when you get that kind of stuff. And that's what's so exciting for me, because right now we have like 110 submissions, and we're still open for submissions for another 2 months. And it can get tiring. It can seem like homework because I watch everything. I have to watch everything, and then I curate it. I go through and I pick what's allowed in, what's not, and then it goes out to the judges. And so I have to watch everything at least twice because I try to give everything a fair shake. Mm-hmm. If I didn't like it the first time, I'm going to watch it back in another week or two because I might have come home from work and I'm in a bad mood, or I'm tired, or I'm not in the right mood for it. And I watch it again, and suddenly my perspective changes. So I want to give everything at least 2 chances, to sort of absorb it. Sometimes I watch something and I'm like, this is perfect, this is great, but I go back and watch it and go, well, I think I was just blown away by the cinematography. They had a really nice camera. It looks nice, but there's nothing to it. You know what I mean? So it can go both ways.
Okay. Hey, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the King Kong Trail. Doug Vandiver sitting next to Tad Good, and we're talking about the film festival, Snake Alley Film Festival.
Yeah.
Tell me more about what goes on.
Well, the way it sort of started was Lonnie Schuyler, who's a Burlington resident now. He is a former actor. I guess he still could be considered an actor, but he had like a main role on, I think it was Melrose Place or Party of Five, one of those two that was before my time, but probably more my sister's groove, my older sister's. But he was a regular on that, and then he moved to Burlington, and he was sort of one of the board members at the time when they restored the Capitol. And the board at the time basically said, okay, we're restoring this. They went around the table and said, what would everybody, like if you could pick one event to hold at the Capitol, what would you do? and that was sort of the brainstorming of what we can do, like when the theater first opens. And he was the one that said, I'd like a film festival. So he actually started it. This will be our 9th year. He did it for the first 3 years, and this will be my 6th year. So after 3 years, he had enough, and he said it's not an old man's game. And so I didn't realize it at the time. You know, I didn't go to the first year at all, I don't think. Second and third year, maybe I did, but I remember going and thinking, you know, I don't think I'm supposed to be here. I was sort of intimidated by it because I didn't know anybody in the room. Mm-hmm. I went in and there was just all these strangers, you know, from in Burlington. You're from here, you know that usually when you go somewhere, you know at least someone, mm-hmm. you know. And so when I went in there, I remember thinking, well, I think this is just for filmmakers, and they accidentally let me in. So I watched like a block of films, and I was blown away. So I stepped out, you know, between blocks, and I'm texting my wife and my friends. I'm like, you guys got to come down here and check this out. And they come down, and we watch a few more blocks. And then they let us out, and there's this party out in the street, and it's all, you know, free food and drinks. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing in the world, you know, free food and movies. I'm absolutely down for this. And, you know, I ended up talking to a lot of filmmakers and met Lonnie down there. And then flash forward a year, by then I had actually started volunteering at the Capitol, booking some films for them and stuff. And they said, you know, hey, you should connect with him. I was actually in charge of an independent film series we had called Gather Preview Series. And what it was this company called Gather was sending us movies, indie movies, before they came to New York and LA to preview. And so we had a really cool opportunity to see it here in Burlington, and basically cool. Like a test audience.
Sure.
And they were bringing them here first, and it was like a subscription thing. You paid like a monthly fee, and you could come down and watch them. And what they would do is that Lonnie would pick a short film to play before the feature. And so that we sort of collaborated back and forth. And I didn't realize at the time, but he was sort of grooming me to be the director because, you know, by the second year, he's like, hey, you should come down and, you know, work the volunteer table. All you do is sign in filmmakers, hand them a shirt. You get to meet a lot of cool people. Okay, I'll help you out. Then it was like, well, you should go in and ask them questions during the Q&As. We always need people to ask good questions. Okay. Then it was like, well, do you know how to run a projector? You should help with that. And then it was like, do you want to come to the filmmaker luncheon and meet all these people? And then it was, you know, come to the after parties. And suddenly I'm like going to all these things, and I was too dense to realize what was happening, because then, you know, flash forward another year, and he sits me down after the festival and says, you know, would you be interested in doing this? I'm like, doing what? Would you be interested in taking over? I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. And he goes, you can't just say you'll do it. You don't understand. There's a lot of work. And I said, oh, it'll be okay. He goes, no, go home and talk it over with your wife. Take some time and let me know later. I'm like, okay, I'll wait till tomorrow to tell you I'm going to do it, because I'm going to do it. Because if I don't do it, no one else is, and it's going to end, and I can't let it end. So, you know, he basically handed over the keys. And the first year he was and he still is, very instrumental in helping the transition. You know, I still go to him for a lot of advice, or, you know, what do you think of this idea? And we have a small little board of directors. You know, it's me and my wife and JoJo Johnson, Carrie Ewinger. We all get together, and Kara and JoJo are sort of in charge of the screenplay part, and I do all the film stuff, and I do all the after parties, and I'm sort of a control freak at times, I admit. So you know, everything outside of the screenplays is what I do, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, if you want something done, it's always the best person is yourself.
Well, luckily my wife has experience in retail management, so I sort of put her in charge of the volunteers, making sure there's someone always at the table signing filmmakers in, and I can basically just tell her, hey, here's our schedule, and let her do it. And that's you know, immensely valuable to me, because it's little things like that.
So do a lot of Burlington people come out along with the filmmakers?
We're slowly getting more and more local support. I think because we're getting more and more Burlington filmmakers. When you get someone down, like you've had Russ Fry on here, you know, he's a Burlington filmmaker. And I think when people come down and see that someone like Russ, or we've had people from like SCC students come in with animations, that's a huge, you know, a huge variety from Russ to a college student. Right. And they're seeing, oh, he can do it and he can do it. How cool, I can do that. You know, so they come down, they feel like if they can do it, it motivates them. You know, we've had a lot of you know, younger kids basically with their phones making some short films, and they do some pretty cool stuff. So
right. My daughter wants to get into that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something I can encourage her to go down and maybe take her down and check out.
Yeah, you know, and we have some more like family friendly type stuff during the day, especially on like the weekends, early mornings. we do have, like, the last 2 years we've had what we call the Saturday morning cartoon block, and that's definitely not kid friendly, but it's a lot of fun. And where we put out like a big cereal bar, and it's all, like, you pick your cereal, and Starbucks always donates coffee to us, and you can get and we encourage people to bring, wear their pajamas and come down, and that's where we do all of our animated shorts. But basically the way the festival actually works is we do them in 2-hour blocks. So we play about an hour and 30 minutes or hour 40 minutes of films, followed by Q&A with the filmmakers right after. Take a quick break, start up another block. So like I said, last year we played 120, so we had about 24 hours of film total.
Wow.
And then we also do the short screenplay readings, which, like Dylan was talking about, where people submit, and it's just like they do in Hollywood. Before they film a movie, they have all the cast and crew sit on a long table. They all have the script in front of them, and they read it out loud to make sure that the dialogue bounces off each other,
Right.
and naturally, and sounds good. Because that's like a writer will sit in on that and say, "Oh, that sounds awful. That doesn't work, or that works here." That kind of thing. Or you can see where someone's, a good fit for it. And just like Kevin was talking about with his, that screenplay he was talking about with Morris, and they had Dylan. It's really cool to see a screenplay come in one year, and then the next year it comes back as a film, or 2 years later, because the writer's there. He did a table read. He sees the local talent in Burlington, or he finds a director whose film he really liked on the screen. Oh, would you be interested in directing my screenplay? Two people who didn't know each other until from different sides of the country, even.
Right.
They come together in Burlington, Iowa, and they end up collaborating, making a film later, and they bring it back to the festival. I mean, nothing's cooler than that. You know?
It always amazes me how people find a Burlington connection. You're talking about this guy that was on Melrose Place. Why do you end up in Burlington?
Yeah.
I understand people going out. I got a cousin out in L.A. that does works in the film industry. I understand that, but how do you go from L.A. to Burlington?
Yeah.
Or New York to Burlington?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, we've, like, last year I know we had a family come in that had a short film. They flew in from New York, and they loved the area so much that they were taking flyers from, like, real estate, boxes, like houses for sale. They were so interested,
Really?
and they could not believe the prices of the houses here. They're like, "Oh my gosh, you can, like, for the cost of my apartment, you can buy a mansion here, and it's so beautiful." And it also makes me appreciate Burlington a little bit more, because when you see it through the eyes of somebody who doesn't live here, they come down and they see our cool old buildings downtown, and they're just enamored. And those are things people around here consider eyesores. Those old abandoned warehouses are so ugly, and they're like, "I want to come here and shoot. This is really cool. I want to shoot something here." And we have regulars that come from across the country now every year, and they have new work, or they just come to hang out and see new stuff. So
yeah, cool. Yeah, we got some friends in New York, and they have I believe he's got an apartment building, and just for one apartment, it's like, you got to be kidding me.
Oh yeah.
The place we stayed at, they're like, don't flush the toilet paper because the sewer system.
Yeah.
You paid this much for this place, and you can't flush the toilet.
Yeah, I think people truly are. We're spoiled here with the cost of living, and it's a great place. And I could, I've considered at times, like, we've had opportunities to go to Iowa City or Des Moines or something, but it's just, it's a cool little corner here in Burlington, and people, they come here and they go down and they see the river, and that's really cool. And it's just little things that we take, for granted every day, that they see from different eyes. And it's just really cool. We try to obviously make Burlington as cool as maybe even cooler than it actually is when they come in. We have an after party after each night in a different place, and we have live music and food and that kind of stuff, and try to make it as fun as possible so that people come back every year, and we get good, word of mouth. That's a huge thing too, because a filmmaker, their film plays here and it looks really great on the projector, and they had a good screening and they're treated nice. They'll tell their friends who make movies too, "Hey, you should submit to Snake Alley this year. It's a lot of fun. They're a good fest. Come, you should submit your stuff." So
right. Well, Burlington, downtown Burlington has come a long way.
Yeah.
To the question is it being gentrified or whatever they call it?
Yeah.
To where there's a coffee shop on every other block, and which is cool, because it's just more opportunity and more. culture, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working down there 10 years now, and downtown it is, and a lot has changed in just the last 10 years. You know, it's amazing. And we were a little scared when Tama, went down, because that was a big opportunity for everyone downtown, having all those people living in that building. That would have been fantastic, obviously, for a theater. But we've recovered, we're still going. So,
yeah. Have they? I don't know. Has anybody decided they're going to rebuild on that place?
Yeah,
or?
I guess. I think the original planner came down and showed his new plans for a smaller building there. It won't be as tall, but have a courtyard and stuff. I think
it's kind of nice looking down there, and you can see the other buildings.
Yeah.
But
I have a friend who lives in an apartment like high up above, sort of by Weird Harold's,
okay.
and she couldn't see the bridge before, and now she can. She's like, I guess that's a good point. It's like, what are they? It's sort of finding the good spot in a bad situation. It's like, yeah, the building burnt down, but now I can see the bridge. She has a great view now. So,
oh, that's wild.
Yeah.
Tell me about when you're not doing the Capitol Theater. What do you like to do?
I do so many things. We're always busy. We go see bands and comedians, movies all the time. I'm at the Mall Theater all the time too. People see me out there and they go, "You trader?" I go, "No, man, I love movies." We have a movie. We're going to go see a movie this Thursday, and then we have a movie at the Capitol Friday, and I'm always at the theater, or always tomorrow night we're going to Des Moines for a concert.
Who are you going to go see?
Murder by Death.
Nope, never heard of them.
you would probably really like them, despite their name. They're actually named after an old mystery movie. And they're not, despite their name, they're not a heavy metal band. They're like a folksy sort of, not quite folksy, but I don't even know how to explain it. Sort of a dark. They have electric cello and acoustic guitar. They're really good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that does sound like a hardcore thrash band.
Yeah, this is their 20th anniversary tour, so I've probably seen them 20 times, so I'm excited to go see them.
Are you afraid of the virus going around? I mean, getting in big crowds like that?
Not so much for that. I've been keeping an eye on it just for the film festival, because you saw like this past weekend, they canceled South by Southwest, which is a huge deal. And they're talking about moving Coachella and that kind of stuff. But we're not till the end of June, so I'm hoping we're in better shape by then. But luckily, because I also am on the Capitol side, the Capitol and the film festival are actually two different entities. The film festival is its own separate nonprofit, so we could potentially move it anywhere. We could screen. We've had screenings elsewhere, but
why would you?
Right. So worst case scenario, if it's still something's going on by June, we could just push it back. We wouldn't have to cancel. We could just move it back until a better time.
Yeah, we just bought tickets for a show in St. Louis, and it's like, do we buy the insurance or not?
Yeah.
We didn't buy it.
Yeah.
Figured if it's bad enough, the band will cancel.
Well, yeah, last week we bought tickets for I think 3 or 4 different things all in a week, and it was expensive, but it's like, that's what credit cards are for, I guess. We got tickets to see Tenacious D. We got tickets to see Smashing Pumpkins. Those were like one day apart. Those tickets went on sale, and we were gonna go see Joe Rogan in Des Moines. So we've got all these tickets lined up, and hoping that things get better before they get worse.
Yeah. So. Hopefully the warmth of the sun will burn it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not too scared of it though. No, I mean, from what I can tell, I'm not in the greatest health, but I don't feel like it would, take me out. So.
Right. I work with junior hires. I've already got whatever they've had or passed around. I think I'd
say your immune system's probably pretty strong by now.
Yeah. I haven't got the flu, or she had a crud cough, lost her voice, and my daughter, same thing. Yeah. I think it's the beard filters out that stuff.
Yeah, maybe that's it. But yeah, we go to, like I said, we go to a lot of different shows. That's sort of we're always on the move. I mean, we'll go to Des Moines to see a movie, if it's not playing here. We don't have kids, and, my wife is all about just spontaneous,
Sure.
So we're always somewhere.
Young.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not as what it used to be. We would drive to Chicago, see a concert, and drive back the same night. The last time we did that, it was like, okay, we can't do this anymore. Let's spring for like the $100 hotel and do that, And actually, next Friday we're gonna go see Paul Rubens is hosting a showing of Pee-wee's Big Adventure at the Chicago Theater. and for its like 25th anniversary. So my wife's a huge Pee Wee fan, so we're gonna go see that and stay there in Chicago. So that's what we enjoy doing. And like I said, I also have a podcast, so I do that, and we're just always busy with something.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about your podcast, and we'll get some information where people can find it. And
Sure. Well, the podcast is called Attack of the Killer Podcast. We just had our 200th episode. We're bi-weekly, so every other Friday we have a new episode drop. But on the opposite Fridays, we drop a bonus episode. And we briefly talked during the break about Patreon, and that's sort of what we do. The bonus episodes are just for our Patreon subscribers. So you can pay as little as $1 a month and get the bonus episodes.
Right.
They're shorter, and basically for the bonus ones, we pick a question that one of our Patreon supporters will ask. So they'll say, what's your favorite? I think the most recent one was, what was your favorite movie president? And so everybody is just sort of an open discussion on who your favorite fictional movie president would be.
Harrison Ford, that would be mine.
Yeah.
Oh.
I had Camacho from Idiocracy.
I don't think I've seen that one.
Oh, you should see that one.
Camacho.
It's Terry Crews, big.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From Mike Judge, who did Beavis and Butthead, he did Idiocracy. Fantastic
Cool.
movie. A little too close to home right now with some of the politics, but it's very funny. Yeah.
Cool.
And so we do that, and then mostly the podcast is about horror films. So our typical format is we pick a theme, and then we have 3 movies in that theme. We all watch them on our own time, get together on a Monday night, and we talk about them, one at a time. And we have segments, the guys who created the podcast, Mike and Jason, they've been doing it. I haven't been a member for the whole time. Those two are the two that have been doing the podcast for 200 episodes. I've been on for, I think, 2 years, but they've been doing it for, I think 7 or 8 years now.
Wow.
And when I joined, it was probably a little long-winded. They would go like 4 or 5 hour podcasts. We've sort of got it streamlined now to try to get it down to a couple hours at the longest, sometimes shorter. Sometimes we'll do commentary episodes where we all watch the same movie at the same time and do like an audio commentary. You can download it sort of like Riff Tracks and watch the movie and listen to us talk about it.
Oh, that's cool.
So like if you're a Patreon subscriber and you want to hear what we have to say about your favorite movie, we've had people say, Silver Bullet's my favorite movie. You guys should do a commentary. And that time we basically all just made fun of Gary Busey for an hour and a half. And it was a blast.
That's so easy to do.
Yeah, it was a blast.
So it's kind of like an audio version of Mystery Theater?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. And the commentaries are anyways, but our typical episodes, like I said, we do a segment called like What We Watched, where we talk about what we've watched since the last time we talked. Because, we're all big horror fans and we watched a ton of movies. So we still want to... The idea is basically we get together with our friends and just talk movies, like we would, and just from being around me for half an hour now, I like to talk. So, they're Jason and Mike are in Ottumwa, and then Andy, who's the other member, is in near the Omaha, Nebraska area.
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah, so we do it over Skype, and it's just good to catch up with your friends. It's for like-minded people. We all have our own quirks and different tastes in films, and so it's interesting. We all watch the same movies to hear what, one person might absolutely love it. One person might absolutely hate it.
Right.
But we all talk about why we liked it, why we hated it, and that kind of thing.
Why horror?
That's sort of the common ground.
What I mean, with you, what sparks you or brings you to that?
That's been a thing since I was very little.
Okay.
I think the first memory I have was my mom and brother watching the original Friday the 13th, and the way our house was set up, I could lay in the hallway underneath the coats that were hanging on the wall, lay down and peek my eye around the corner and watch it when I wasn't supposed to. I have very vivid memories of doing that, and I didn't know at the time what the movie was, and then I saw it as an adult, and I'm like, oh, that was Friday the 13th. I remember Crazy Ralph, saying, you're all doomed. But then growing up with an older brother, I remember one summer, him and his friend, when we had Circus Video here in town, is this huge video store, and they were sort of losers, and they hung out at my mom's house all the time, and they went through the whole horror section, starting with alphabetical, and rented every movie and tried to get through all their entire horror section.
Oh, wow.
And so that was sort of a thing I grew up, and I just something about the thrill of horror movies, and then I actually met Mike, Jason, and Andy through the film festival, and that's how they were like, hey, you want to come on as a podcast guest sometime, sort of like I'm doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just never left. It's been like 2 years. I've just been a guest every week.
That's funny. My wife, I don't take her to horror movies. I don't get to watch horror movies very often. I took her, I can't remember what film it was, but Holding the Popcorn. Something like that.
Yeah.
Popcorn's flying everywhere, and it's like, this is the dumbest film I've ever seen. But
yeah,
she was like, oh.
Yeah, I can't get enough. I mean, that's one of the things when I met my wife. I remember we actually worked at the same place, and we hung out one time, and she was wearing John Carpenter's Halloween T-shirt, and I was like, a hot chick wearing a Halloween shirt. She has my heart, man. I got to marry this girl, and that we had that common ground, and then I think we sort of talked the Halloween film series, and then it turned into, she's into horror too, and and that's, I can talk horror just about anybody, but it's like finding like-minded people.
Do you like the campy horror or the realistic horror?
I love it all. I prefer atmospheric type stuff. Not so much gore. But I love gore too. I mean, I like it all. I like the cheesy stuff. I like bad stuff. I love bad movies. I love great movies too. But like even last year at the film festival, we had Greg Sestero come down and do a live stage reading of The Room, which is now known as the worst movie of all time.
Oh,
yeah. James Franco made The Disaster Artist.
Driving me crazy or something like that.
You're tearing me apart, Lisa.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's so that whole crazy thing was Franco saw that movie, loved it so much, and then Greg wrote a book about the making of the movie because it became so notoriously bad. Mm-hmm. And then Franco read the book, thought that was fascinating, turned the book into a movie that ended up winning awards. He won a Golden Globe for Best Actor, playing what's considered the worst actor. It's so backwards. But, Greg has been a good friend to the Capitol, and, he came down and we did a stage reading of the original first screenplay of The Room without any of the edits that had been made, to the final movie, which was considered the worst. So this was worse than the worst movie. And it was so unbelievably bad that it was hilarious. It's like a comedy sketch.
Right. So what's your favorite as far as the more realistic type, or you said atmospheric?
Yeah, I mean, John Carpenter is my favorite director, and I think Halloween was the one that sort of got me into actual filmmaking. I just saw movies as movies until I saw that one, and I'm like, what's with the music here? How did this get made? It made me want to know who made this. So I look, John Carpenter. He wrote it, he directed it, and did the score. That's crazy. Like, I want to know more about this guy. And of course that opened a whole Pandora's box of John Carpenter. It's almost his own genre of movies. So it was just so cool to me that a guy could write, direct, and do the music, and he was, at the time, that was the highest grossing independent film of all time, so that was a huge deal, very do-it-yourself.
Right.
And so that's my favorite movie of all time.
How many films of Friday the 13th is there?
There would be, if you include the remake, I think 12.
Okay.
Yeah, Jason Goes to Hell. Jason X was Jason 10, and then they did Freddy vs. Jason, and then a reboot, so 12, yeah.
Yeah, I think... I haven't seen a whole lot of them, but I remember seeing the Freddy Jason. That was, oh, really?
Yeah, I think I saw that was my senior year of high school, and I saw it 3 times opening night.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. I remember we took a foreign exchange student, and he had no idea what was going on. He was straight from Germany like that week, and he came to Freddy vs. Jason with no prior knowledge of the previous movies, and he was just so confused.
That's funny.
But I do love the slashers, and those movies hold a special place in my heart just because growing up, that was sort of my, like, we'd go to Hy-Vee when they rented VHS tapes, and they had the little, copy of the movie you took off the pegboard and took up to the counter, and they would hand you the VHS tape, or Video Warehouse. Out on Roosevelt, we would go get movies there, and
I remember that one.
Yeah, it's back behind where like Lips to Go is. That by Great Wall.
Yeah, it's like the Iowa Works place now, or some telemarketing thing.
But yeah, as a kid, I played outdoors a lot, but I loved horror movies when I got to like middle school, and did the whole like goth thing. I had black hair and wore White Zombie and Ozzy Osbourne T-shirts, and
never wanted to go out and kill anybody.
No, yeah. But then I sort of outgrew that, but I never outgrew the horror thing,
right?
And that's just sort of my thing. But I love all movies too. I will see anything. All the Oscar stuff I see before the awards. I want to see it all, and
What's the movie that scares you the most? Mine would be the original Exorcist.
Yeah.
I can never get through that movie.
Yeah.
Because it just it freaks me out.
I remember I just was talking about that last night when I was getting my hair cut, and she, like the lady who's cutting my hair, she was saying, I don't do scary movies, because I told her this Friday we're doing Friday the 13th 3 in 3D, and she said, I don't do scary movies. I said, that one's so fun though. Like the idea of the 3D it's more of a novelty than it is scary. And she's like, I still can't do scary. And I said, watching old horror movies in theaters now is a whole different experience, because we've played part 1 and 2, Friday the 13th part 1 and 2, and Halloween, and I'll admit I get pretty frazzled because the crowd now laughs at a movie that I respect so much.
Right.
And it bums me out, because especially Halloween, Friday the 13th 1 and 2 are cheesy, campy horror movies. They're not great masterpieces, but to me, John Carpenter's Halloween is a masterclass in horror,
right, and
created the whole slasher genre. And when people are laughing at the dialogue or laughing at parts that are supposed to be scary, I just have a hard time. It hurts my heart, because that was the one that really scared me. It doesn't necessarily scare me now, but people watch The Exorcist now and they laugh at that dialogue, and at the time, people were losing their minds.
Yeah.
That was terrifying. My boss told me he saw The Omen down at the Palace, and him and his friends like smoked some weed and went and saw The Omen. And when they left the palace, there was a big thunderstorm coming through. And there's a scene in The Omen where the cross gets lightning takes the cross off the building and goes right through the priest's heart. And they were freaking out because they're walking through by all these churches downtown,
right,
through a thunderstorm, and the wind's blowing, the leaves everywhere, and they're high, and it's freaking them out. And I'm like, I don't, even if you're not high, you just don't get a good experience of being scared in a horror movie anymore. It's hard to find that. We're so desensitized now. We've seen it all, so it's hard.
Well, and the other movie that freaked me out was I almost said Freddie Mercury, Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street. I remember babysitting my 2 cousins, and they were up sleeping in bed, and I was down in the basement, and I just it freaked me out.
That's that series. The first one is still very, very scary. Over the years when Freddy became such a pop culture icon, he became just sort of a joke of himself.
Yeah.
By like the 5th film, he was just guys spitting one-liners. He's no longer about scary. It's sort of like Chucky too. It became more of a funny thing than scary. But that first Nightmare on Elm Street is so visceral and is scary.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take another break, and we'll be back after this. And we're back on the King Kong Trail. Doug Vandiver sitting next to Tad Good. And Tad, let's kind of wrap up. Tell me about how to find your podcast, how to tell me one more time the dates on the film festival, and any things you guys got coming up.
Well, you can find Attack of the Killer podcast on SoundCloud. We are starting to put them up on YouTube. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, just about anywhere. You can find us on Facebook at Attack of the Killer podcast, and that's probably the best way to keep updated. We do a fun segment where we involve the audience called Shout Out. So like for instance, this last one we did was political horror, so we just ask the listeners, what are your favorite political horror movies, and then we talk about them too on the podcast. So it's like, Jason from Burlington, he says They Live is his favorite one. What do you guys think of that one? That kind of thing. But you can find us on podcast or on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're on all social media. We have attackofthekillerpodcast.com. Also part of the Prescribed Films Podcast Network. We have, I think, 18 shows on there right now. The guys who founded Attack of the Killer podcast, Jason and Mike, started their own podcast network from their independent film company called Prescribed Films. They've been doing films for I think like 25 years now. They've been making small indie movies, like
Sure.
horror movies for years. So they decided, let's create like a podcast network and bring a bunch of horror shows and film podcasts, and that way we can help each other promote and get it out there. And it's sort of like our own little channel. So you can find that on thepfpn.com. That will have our show and everybody else's shows on there.
Okay.
And then for the film festival right now, it's coming up June 25th through the 28th, but we are actually open for submissions until May 1st. And you can go to either snakealleyfestivalfilm.com. Once again, find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at Snake Alley Festival Film. Or you can go to filmfreeway.com/snakealleyfestivalfilm. That's where you'd actually submit your short films. You can read about the deadlines, the requirements for each film. Like I said, anything short. A lot of people don't realize we take music videos, so that's something unique to our festival. Animations, all kinds of stuff. It's a lot of fun. So
We were just kind of talking during the break. My cousin Joel, he's done a few music videos. Pretty cool stuff.
yeah, he still does do stuff, and he'll every once in a while text me a picture while he's on the set of something that he thinks I'll find interesting. I'm a big mixed martial arts guy, so he'll send me he did a lot of shooting for like UFC and bare knuckle boxing stuff.
Yeah.
So he'll send me, he's like, hey, I'm filming Conor McGregor today, and I'm like, oh, what a life, and to him, he's like, it's just another gig. I'm like,
Yeah.
man, that's cool, so
Yeah, I guess when you're running the cameras or when doing all that kind of stuff, you're not really watching for entertainment. You got
Right.
to watch for the moment.
it's a job to him, but I'm very proud of him and glad he's doing what he loves to do. So
Yeah. What else did we talk
well, Capitol
about?
Theater, you can
Theater.
always find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, everything, or go to burlingtoncapitaltheater.com, and we have all kinds of upcoming stuff. We have concerts, movies. Like I said, this Friday we have Friday the 13th in 3D, and then we have a Journey tribute coming up.
Yep.
We just booked a big show coming up that I'm not sure I can announce yet, but it's sort of cool. Just today, of course, Old Couch is coming up, and we just have so much Peter, Paul, and Mary tribute. I mean, it's there's something for everybody.
Yeah.
We try to get a crazy variety of stuff just so it's a local community theater, so we want everybody to have something to come to.
Cool. Maybe now to submit a film to the film festival, does that cost anything?
Yeah, it basically goes in tiers. The early deadline was the cheapest, and it goes up about $10 each time, and that covers the cost of running the festival, because once again, that is also a nonprofit. So everybody, including myself, we're all volunteers, and we just do it because we love it. So it covers the cost of renting the theater and ordering the t-shirts. Like if you submit your film, it gets accepted, and you come, you get a free shirt, you get a goodie bag, a swag bag of free local stuff. You and a guest can attend the whole festival. You get into the filmmakers brunch for free. We feed you. You get to the after parties for free. You get a lot for your submission fee. We make sure that goes right back into the festival. Anything we have left over. I mean, we also try to help out if we can to get people here or boarding. For people from out of town. We just do what we our budget allows. We've had guests the last 2 years, so we're still sort of looking at this year to see if we're going to get a guest or not. But
Very cool. You do a lot of work, down there and promoting it and all that kind of stuff. Burlington is very lucky to have that place.
yeah,
Very lucky to have some of the bigger city culture, I guess, that we have down there. I mean, we got so many, places to see bands.
Oh yeah.
So many, and then the Capitol Theater as far as the film fest and watching films and.
Yeah, it's so crazy. Like we were talking about that today when we're trying to book a show or a movie. We're looking at the community calendar, and there's just no way to not overlap with stuff.
Yeah.
We were looking at booking a band here, and it's like, well, what else is going on? There's a show at the Washington, the Auditorium. Down at Wake and Bake, there's a show. There's one over at Bent River. You go down Jefferson, there's 6 concerts going on.
Right.
It's wild, but that's great because it could be 6 different kinds of music. So there's something for everybody.
Yeah.
And Snowball's happening this week, and we knew that going in when I booked my movie. But I don't know if there's a lot of people who want to go to the rodeo or Friday the 13th. It's a different audience, but
Well, if we get done with our podcast on Friday night, I might just slip down there and I ought to take you 3D.
It is that movie is just so comically bad because they filmed it knowing it was going to be 3D. So there's like a scene where a guy's yo-yoing at the screen, and there's ones where like there's a broom handle. I mean, it's things that make no sense in 2 dimensions. It's like, why is this happening? But they clearly just were filling in to make the crowd go whoa, and it is pretty fun and ridiculous.
Okay. Well, Chad, thank you so much for spending time and coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I had a question for you.
Yeah.
How did this start?
You got another 30 minutes? What I wanted to record my mom's stories.
Okay.
And because I knew her growing up, back in when she was a kid, things weren't all that great. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to record and talk to her and, have something that I could hold on to. Unfortunately, in 2012, she got pancreatic cancer and passed away. And I kicked myself. I've got one little message that she left on my phone that I listen to every once in a while. Hi, Doug, it's Mom, just seeing how you're doing. I want to cry, I'll play that.
Yeah.
And also, my grandma, I thought, man, I want to get her stories. Mm-hmm. Thought, oh, we got time. No, time does not wait. Mm-hmm. And after she passed, and then I just thought, I play music, but due to diabetes and stuff like that, it just doesn't work very well anymore. And I had a little radio experience, and I thought, I want to talk about Burlington stories.
Yeah.
And get stories from just about anybody and everybody. I tell people, it's a podcast is about telling stories and telling lies.
Yeah.
As long as it's entertaining. You don't want to make big lies and stuff like that. But, and so we started off with just an audio, and then I went to a digital 15-year-old camera and spent money. And
yeah, that's how it is. Yeah.
And we're getting at a good place, where I need like 2 more cameras. So, any sponsors?
Yeah. Well, that's like, get on Patreon, man.
Yeah. But, and I plan on turning into a business.
Yeah.
I don't want to say what and how and all that kind of stuff, but eventually, I'm hoping to have a little, side hustle, I guess you want to call it. And so I want to hear people's stories. I want to hear about Burlington. Russ Fry came and he told us how the Confederate Army had a camp where Perkins Restaurant is.
Yeah, I mean that guy is like a gold mine.
Yeah. Well, I'm having him back on Friday the 13th.
I would say you could have him on once a month and never cross the same story twice.
Yeah.
And that's how I got into the show was, when you had Russ, he shared it, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. Someone else in Burlington. Yeah. There's several Burlington podcasts now that are really cool. And
I'm starting to hear about that. So if anybody's out there that has a Burlington podcast, I'd love to connect and, get tips and things like that.
Yeah, the library actually, we've done a few live shows down there for Geektastic and stuff, and they contacted us and they want to, and they might have it now. I think they might. They were going to create like a small studio with equipment that you can use. So if a high schooler can't afford to have a setup like this at home, they can go, hey, me and you, let's meet down at the library. We have a half hour. We have this room reserved. It's free. And they use that equipment and they record it and they take it home.
Very cool. Yeah, because I've researching all this kind of stuff. And you can go from, very cheap to recording on your phone to thousands of dollars. And, some people just have beautiful studios.
Oh, yeah.
And then just a couple weeks ago, I learned that like in New York City, they have Staples has their own podcast studios.
Yeah.
So you can go into Staples and record a podcast.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. There's whole like, studios now like Earwolf and different stuff. And, I'll listen to podcasts and it's like they have a studio set up just for that. And it's pretty cool. And
the podcast medium is just so insane.
Yeah.
On how people are getting information out.
Yeah.
And, people telling their stories, whether, it's a 10-minute travel log or whatever. But people want to hear that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I work 8 to 4:30 Monday through Friday, and the moment I sit at my desk till the moment I leave my desk, I'm listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
And it's almost not quite a chore, but I have so many that I listen to regularly now that, it's like if I don't get to one, I feel like I'm behind and I'm
Right.
sort of stressed about it. Like,
Right.
too stressed about it. It's like, man, I got to catch up, and like today I was listening to yours with Kevin. So like, that's another one now I have on the list. And, it's a good problem to have though, that there's so
Yeah.
much information out there,
Yeah.
and you pick and choose, but it's like sort of like the short film world is that there's something for everybody.
Yeah.
It's fascinating that you can. I mean, there's a podcast I just listened to about this actor who got fired by Tom Hanks on Band of Brothers, and he got the job and then got fired, and he's using his podcast to talk to celebrity guests about a situation that they've been in where they got fired or lost a job and how it affected their world, but turning it into a positive.
Right.
Because Tom Hanks fired him and he told him he had dead eyes. And so the podcast is called Dead Eyes, and so it's interesting. He had John Hamm and different people on, and basically they said, everybody has a story about a gig they're fired from or a situation that did not go their way, but they prevailed and moved on, and that that's inspiring. That's really
Right.
cool.
Talk about Tom Hanks, the meme. You never want to travel with Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a new movie coming out in June.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called, but it's a
It's like a war movie, right?
Yeah, Navy ship,
Yeah.
and they're taking these ships across, and they have like 5 days in World War II where they don't have any contact with either side of the ocean, so they're out by themselves. And being a Navy veteran, it's like, oh, I got to see that.
Yeah, right up your
So
alley.
I'm excited, but then it's like, yeah, I don't want to travel on that ship with Tom Hanks.
Exactly.
because,
Once again. Yeah.
something bad's gonna happen.
Yeah, exactly.
So
But no, I think it's great what you're doing too, bringing
thank
people
you.
in and sharing their stories, and it's
Thank you.
cool that you've had a good variety of people, and
Yeah.
people think Burlington's boring, but you're proving them wrong. So.
Really, it's not. I mean, there's something to do every weekend, whether it's movies, concerts.
Yeah, there's too much to do. Like we're always, there's always two things on a night. It's like, oh, I wish I could be two places at once. And
Yeah, I can't remember. One of the people I was talking to, brought up the point that Burlington is too small for what we have.
yeah,
We have so much amenities for a town our size, and that's a good problem.
yeah. I have friends who come back, that moved away and come back and see their parents. And every time they come back, they visit somewhere new and they go down to like Good, and they're like, man, there's a place that, it's like a hipster foodie place. Or they go, oh, you have like a little taco shop now. You have food trucks. You know, you have, music, more than one music festival. And it's like, they go away for, they come back every Christmas, and there's all kinds of new stuff, and that's really cool.
Right. Well, once again, thank you for spending
thank
your
you.
time here. We look forward to seeing you down there at the movies or concerts or something like that.
Yeah,
And-
if you're ever down at the Capitol, just look up into the projection booth. You usually see me, or you'll see me running through the lobby, like frantically trying to fix something. Or
Okay. This is I can't remember who I was talking to. Did the Capitol Theater have a balcony?
no, the Palace did, but the Capitol never did.
Okay.
We have while I'm up there projecting movies, a lot of people come up, and I have this one little overhead light that just shines on my face so I can see the projection equipment. They'll come in and they'll just see me up there, and they're like, is there not a balcony up here? And it's just this scary bearded guy in the dark.
Right.
I'm like, no, this is the projection room. Get out. This is my cave, and it
that's
always
funny.
it is funny. But we have a little back room back there too that we use for stuff. But no,
Right.
there's never been technically a balcony. There's cool spotlight rooms that that are like private. I go up and watch concerts from up there, but that's one of the perks of being a board member.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, because I mean the steps going up. It makes you think there's a balcony.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
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 There's a cool above the annex. There's a whole other thing that we're working on trying to get upgraded
Nice.
and worked out for like stuff like this and for SEC to use. So,
Okay.
That's our sort of next venture. But
Well, you have to come back and tell us about that when it becomes public.
But yeah, if you come down, like I said, look up in the projection booth. You'll probably see me looking out the window, and don't be afraid to come up and say hi, and I'll give you the free tour and show you all.
I want to go see that. I'm going to come down and I want to see that the old projector.
Yeah,
because that's not something you throw away.
No, I don't think you could. That thing is so heavy and it's bolted to
Really?
the floor. Yeah, I don't think
Really?
the building will crumble around it.
So it's not your average old high school projector.
No, it's like it stands on its own. It's big stainless steel. It's huge.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of my favorite shows, Walking Dead.
Mm-hmm.
One of their episodes is they were going to get a light bulb for their projector,
Mm-hmm.
and that was one. Was the light was huge.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I love that show.
Yeah.
Man, I need to do a Walking Dead podcast. I'm sure there's a gazillion of them.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah.
well, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you later.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
You too.
Thanks.